Hey there.
Hi,
Hi. Happy Tuesday.
same to you. You can hear me, right?
Yes, can.
Great. I'll make my screen bigger. There we go.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hello.
Can anybody hear me tonight?
Is that
Yes,
just
can hear you fine.
Wow, this is the first.
Oh, it's Jeff Lewis.
Well, you know what it is? I called my daughter, and she put on my grandson, and he fixed my audio.
Yeah.
You
This is
called
really all
tech,
you need is someone who's 16
That's
Right.
right.
or 10.
10.
you called tech support.
So thank God for grandchildren when it comes to technology.
No kidding.
I'm always calling on my daughter.
Bob, is there any chance we can get the warrant in Word?
Excuse me?
Bob,
Oh.
can we get the warrant in Word as opposed to in a PDF?
I don't see why not. I don't have it as such, but we can ask Tony.
All right. It just would make it easier to fill out, the,
Absolutely. It'd make it easier on all of us.
Right.
yeah, thanks. I don't, yeah, thanks.
Can you see me? Because my thing shows a black box, but you can see me, right?
No.
You
No.
can't
Have
see me.
Do you have your camera covered?
Let me just check a second.
Take the sticky note off.
I've done that.
How's that?
There it is.
There you go.
Great.
There's a trick.
Yeah, take the sticky note off. There we go.
Hi, Julie.
Hello.
All right.
Another fine day in Nahant. Cool breezes.
Oh, it was mighty dang hot upstairs today. Listen,
Yep.
although I almost never complain about that because I hate the cold so much. So who cares? I mean, humidity go, woof, I'm fine.
Yeah, but how about your plants? Mine
Oh.
are parched.
They're dust.
They're dust.
They're dust.
And
Well,
edges
that-
and leaves are all brown and crinkly.
Well, some of yours blew away last week, right?
Yes, my window boxes fell out, so they dropped 2 stories. They're not going to recover. They did not fly well.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Hi,
John.
John. Yeah, that was kind of a heck of a storm.
But no rain.
So Bob, I just saw your note. So the meeting was posted for 6:30?
Oh,
On the community calendar, it's posted for 6:30.
Yeah, but our posting says 7 though, doesn't it?
I understand. If you look
Yeah.
on the community calendar, it
Oh,
says
okay.
6:30. It happened to me once too. So I want to keep an eye. And when I tried to come into this Zoom meeting, it said there is another meeting in progress. You
Yeah.
have to end
Yeah.
that meeting.
mine
that-
said that too.
Is that
Same
normal
here.
Zoom behavior?
I don't know. I didn't get that.
I did.
I did too. But I figured I'd just wait till 7.
Okay, so Judy, I have something here from Tony that is town meeting warrant draft version 5 in a Word format. Is version 5 the one we're looking for?
Say,
Yes.
Okay, I will.
thank you very much.
Okay, maybe it is. Maybe we have it already. Let's see who this went to.
As long as it has 38 articles.
Yeah, you should have it already. It came on August the 6th from Tony, who was Dave Barletta and Hunt.org. And it's entitled Political Assignment.
Yeah, I think I have it.
It came from Tony on 5, draft 5?
Yeah. I can resend it. No problem. Anybody else want it?
So I think the one I had from Tony was a PDF.
I have it.
All right, well, thanks, I appreciate that. I don't know how I missed it, but
Okay, it's on its way.
thank you.
Would you send me another copy as well, please? I'm pretty sure I have it, but just in case.
Is that Julie? I can't.
Barbara,
Barbara.
Okay.
thank you.
Jeff and DeWitt, can you hear us? We can't, I can see your names, but can you?
I've taken my video off
Okay,
so that
all right.
it works, so that the internet works better.
Sounds good. I just want
And I'm probably going to mute myself when I'm not going to say anything, because it just is better.
Sounds good. How about Jeff? Jeff, you there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, good. Good. So at least Zoom is hopefully on the right path thus far.
Well, I'm a lot better off. I couldn't speak at all,
Yeah.
although some would say that that's a good thing.
For most of us here, I think.
Well, at least you know how to do the chat, Jeff, so I could see your voting opinions.
Well, yeah, and he put in a storm, right? It was either that or my daughter was trying to teach me sign.
So then,
No,
John, Bob, you want to bring the
Smoky
meeting to
bonfire
order?
in the backyard would work too.
Yeah, I guess, how about we start the meeting, 8/11, 2020 at 7:08 PM.
Yep.
Great.
So, I don't know, Bob, who wants to jump in, but I went ahead and looked through the kind of voting list of things, warrant articles that we have not yet voted on. So I was thinking, as we intended, we just kind of start through those and hopefully knock as many of them off as we can. There's definitely some in here that are going to, require additional deliberation and information, but I guess we should maybe just dive in.
All right, and then as we go through, if you could just say who's responsible, and we'll make sure that make sure that everybody, that's all clear.
Okay, all right.
All right, that's my assistant right there.
Ah,
Does that make sense, Bob, to you?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Do you have the updated list?
I have a list. I'm debating whether I should share my screen or should I just, do we want to share the version of the warrant so we can read the article as we discuss it, or do we just want to assume that everybody can follow along and if I say Article 4?
why don't you share your screen? That way we know that we're all seeing the same thing at the same time.
Okay, it says host has enabled attendee screen sharing. I thought I was the host, so maybe you want to see if you can, if anybody else tries to share their screen, do you get the same?
Well, it says I can share the screen. I didn't.
Oh, okay.
All right, so hang on. Let me open this. Let me open it in Word. Right.
Where are you?
Where am I?
No. There it is. I found the warrant.
So the first one that I see we haven't voted on is the salary and classification plan. Are we ready for that one, Bob?
I do not have the updated stuff from Debbie yet, so I guess no.
Okay.
But we might just note that we were told that they have now negotiated new union contracts so that what we have in there as text will change.
Okay, so for number 4, we'll say we need the update from Debbie. Okay, so the next one is 7, which is the omnibus.
Right.
So we can't do that one yet either because that's, I talked to Tony earlier today. Oh,
There.
I talked to
That work?
Tony. Good, yeah, that worked. I talked to Tony earlier today. He's at a school committee meeting right now and he's gonna attempt to join us eventually. But he predicted that potentially he would have the East Coast or East Point study document maybe next week. And also, you know, more final omnibus numbers. So we can't do number 4. We can't do number 7. Number 8 is the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. So typically, you know, these typically 8 and 10 are almost boilerplate in that we kind of pull the line items from the omnibus and plug them into the articles so we know what, you know, the salaries and the capital expenditures are, and we generally approve them. But I don't know, do we have the actual numbers? Does anybody have those?
No.
It notes is 200,000 or wherever, in number 8, right? It says 200,000? No, it doesn't give a number.
That's a different one. So that's Article 8 is just so basically those the enterprise fund articles basically just allow those funds to operate. You know, we have to vote at town meeting for those enterprise funds that live outside the budget, so to speak, and are their own kind of independent entities to operate. So we generally just, you know, we definitely, you know, once we know the numbers, it's pretty much a rubber stamp.
Last year they recommended, and it was the quote unquote is the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends the passage of this article. This article allows the transfer of collected water and sewage usage fees and the transfer from general funds to the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. The following will be approved for the direct expenses of the water and sewer. Then they have salaries, expenses, capital outlay, debt, and emergency. And it was the 2,400,000 and some odd thousand.
Right.
But I don't think that this one is that going to be the same, sort of the same thing?
It'll be the same format, it just the numbers will be different.
And do we have those numbers from somebody?
We have to have a conversation with Debbie to basically extract those from her documents.
Okay, because I was sort of wondering how, well, this number, my question is going to be on 18, but this is my, I believe this is mine also.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it appropriate to ask questions at this time?
Absolutely.
I was looking at the enterprise fund, just going over the numbers, and I noticed that the only numbers available were FY 2018 or 2019. I'm sorry, and they took an operating loss. Is that usual and customary that we wouldn't have enough funds or the fees wouldn't cover the expenses?
I would say, without having the numbers in front of me, I would say no. That's pretty not normal.
Unless something happened.
Yeah, unless it had to do related to some, you know, catastrophic event or some, you know, there were significant borrowings in those funds. So maybe it was related to that. Where did you, Jeff, where were you looking that you found just that?
I went on the website, the town website, and I looked at the auditor's report, the last one that was there.
Oh, that's on the town, okay.
on the town website, and I noticed when I went down the enterprise, it had an operating loss.
Hmm.
And I said, that's interesting. I guess, I don't know, since I've never seen anything like this before,
Right,
I
right.
don't know whether that's usual and customary or whether they at least try to break even.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
so I wasn't around for last year, so I'm operating on shaky memory here, but I remember there was some conversation about that the fund was building up a lot of retained earnings.
Yes, and there should be a management plan for the retained earnings of the water and sewer fund. And
Yeah,
we should
so
find out,
I think part of the idea was it was okay to run a loss and therefore not, or let me say it backwards, the other way around, to not raise rates and therefore run a loss and eat up some of the retained earnings balance.
does a management plan for the water and sewer fund exist? And what are the accumulated funds?
I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah, me neither.
that's a question that we should probably find out from Tony, I guess.
It's definitely a Tony question.
Now, do I address that, or do you guys address it, since you have more authority?
Well, I'll make a deal with you, Bill. You should address it, but I will be happy to join the conversation with Tony with you if you want.
Well, I've emailed Tony 2 times that I remember and haven't gotten a response.
yeah. So I will also say that it has been, yeah, I know there's a lot of stuff going on at town hall, and I know Tony's busy and Deb is super busy, but I've struggled with getting information as well. I think DeWitt, I think you being the person who's kind of quote listed as the contact for that article, if you can at least spearhead the questions in terms of what information we want, and then rope Bob in and push that to both Debbie and Tony, that would make sense. But I also think
Hey, John,
try to
maybe
do is, yes,
maybe we should be thinking more broadly and let's somehow collect all of our Tony/Debbie questions and do it
Once.
it en masse rather than piecemealing them.
yep, that's the exact thing I was going to say. So I was going to say, if we independently author kind of the general pretense of the questions or issues that we have, and then we'll consolidate them into a single document, and then say, you know, we need to know this information before we make our votes.
Well, can I add to that then?
Sure.
I looked at the estimated life, and I did a calculation between the government funds and the water and sewer. And the infrastructure and the government had an average life of about 10.4 years left. And yet the sewer had an average life of pretty close to 30. It was like, I think it was 20, it was twice, 24 years. And I know they're supposed to be depreciated over 40 years, but I'm also aware that there's some large sewer projects that are off in the distance.
Well, that's,
I guess I didn't expect to see that much useful life left on the infrastructure assets. I'm wondering if there isn't some impairment. They should evaluate them.
Is that again from the auditor's report?
Well, no, I went into the GASB. I went into a bunch of different things, but in the auditor's report, they just did not address it at all. I just happened to do a calculation of useful life, undepreciated life, and I said, it seemed too long for me.
Hmm.
But I have nothing to compare it against.
Yeah, so Jeff, you hit on what has been a sore subject for quite a while. Because in municipal accounting, there is no such thing as depreciation. There's a real tendency to not not budget, not put things away for capital improvements,
Right, that's a problem.
which is a huge problem.
Right.
So I mean, I think your instincts are absolutely right. Is that we ought to be raising this sort of thing as an issue, trying to impose the discipline of thinking in terms of remaining useful life, and do we have and planning for the funds to repair or replace when it becomes necessary.
Although, and listen, I absolutely agree. I think that there's rigor that needs to be done. I think Tony's done an amazing job in the period of time that he's been here. There's been it's been a whole cluster going on. That said, I think that there's rigor and information that we don't have. And what the point I'm trying to make now is we're not going to get it right now. We've got 2 weeks before the book needs to be done, and we're not even sure if they're going with a full warrant. So we're kind of in a rock and a hard place. We're at the same spot we always are. We're at the mercy of what they've given us.
Yeah, but what we might choose to do is use Article 8 as a little bit of a, whatever you want, as an opportunity to raise that as a long-term issue for the town that needs to be addressed. And there's a somewhat related thing, which is the debt service for water and sewer is not in the enterprise fund, it's in the general fund. So the water and sewer enterprise fund doesn't, your water rates don't reflect the true cost.
In last year's warrant, there was debt service in that article, which is on page 14. What was it on page 14?
No, it's not, well, you're 13 in my book.
No, okay, yeah, 13. You're right. There's debt service to the tune of what, 830,000?
Mm-hmm.
They transferred it over. It's paid out of the general fund, but it's transferred over.
Last year we said that the town was going to endeavor to go on a zero-based budget. That didn't happen.
Yeah, but hey, Bill, if you look at it, they transfer it in, but they don't collect for it, which is on page 14.
Oh, yeah. Page 14, that's in, no.
I don't know, I'm looking at, what I think is last year's book, and it's yellow covered.
Yes. Oh, it gets turned over, but it doesn't.
All right, but
Okay, that doesn't, I don't know.
where are we going with this one? Should we just formulate a list of questions for
Yeah,
Tony?
we added to the list of questions and the information that we need for both the water and sewer enterprise fund and the next one, the rubbish enterprise fund, because I bet we don't have the numbers for that either.
A rubbish enterprise.
So that's Article 10.
Right.
And last year it was Article 11.
I'll have to trust you on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then we jump into the CPC articles that we have not yet voted.
Let me get to the.
Rob, those are not, this copy of the warrant that you're showing in front of us will have just the single CPC Article 14.
Yeah.
Do you have a document that has the sub-articles? So we can look at those? I mean, if I could share my screen, let me just try to share it. No, it won't let me.
Do you think that in an abbreviated warrant that the CPC articles would be there?
I have at least at least the CPC report that has the articles in them, and I have a version of the warrant where Perry had plugged the CPC articles into it. Let me just see what I can do.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
I'm about to make you host, or at least I
Okay.
think I am.
Okay.
I think you're a host.
Okay.
Oh, it says you're a host.
Says that he's the host now. Yeah.
Let me just, before I accept that esteemed role, let me just make sure I have the document that I'm thinking of.
Ah, good. Get back to this, I think.
It's not there. Not there. All right, let me try one more place. Sorry. Okay, I have it. All right, what do you see?
Article 14,
Okay, and do you see the ones with the sub bullets A, B?
yes?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so this is what we need to dive into. So of the CPC articles, A and B, we've already voted to approve. So number C is outstanding. So this is related to $17,000 that are being pledged or allocated to as part of a match for the Nahant Dory Club to enhance the gangway and the new float that they have kind of commissioned and already started to put in place at the wharf. And, you know, the logic behind it was the town sailing program relies almost entirely on that side of the wharf and that float in particular to run its program. So the conversations we've had in the past were that, you know, a CPC article that has a preponderance of matching funds serves a town purpose, and you know, makes sense in the larger context of high-level capital plans or capital projects that, you know, enhance and improve the town. I think it's worth discussing, but I think I would be in a position to support approval of this article if someone were to make a motion. But if we want to talk about it a little more first.
I would be happy to make a motion.
I'd like to talk about it some more.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm either way, I'm good.
Well, we can make we can either talk before or after the motion. I mean, if we make the motion, we'll have room for discussion. But
Right.
if you want to just go ahead, Judy. Do you want to just dive in?
So I'm not necessarily in favor of this. I don't think that public money should be to support a private organization. And I understand that all the things that they say the Dory Club does, but that really doesn't, that serves a small population of Nahant. I think that we don't need to support the Dory Club, frankly. I'd rather see public money go someplace else, more broadly used.
But what about the argument that you're you know, the Dory Club is in essence a private entity that supports the public domain in making the public Nahant sailing program
What's the population of the attendance of the public Nahant sailing program? Again, it's a small elite group of people.
It's not. I mean, it's not. If you looked at the numbers and the demographics of the people that participate in the sailing program, it's not. It's open to all. They accept any child regardless of, you know, ability to pay. There's funds in place to pay for tuition and class fees.
What's the population that they serve? I mean, how many are actually attending?
So in the past, late in the last few years, you know, this year in particular has been a challenge for the program because they've had to operate under a reduced capacity mandated by the COVID protocols. But I think they have around, 40 kids who participate in the program this year, maybe 30 to 40. In years past, when there were, you know, more kids in town and around, the numbers were as high, over 100 participants. You know, there's, I would say 80% are kids, 20% are adults. There's an adult sailing component that's offered as well. So, I mean, I think it's.
Are they all Nahant residents?
No, they're not all Nahant residents. I think there's probably maybe 5%-ish that are from out of town, but they pay increased fees. So, I mean, there's nobody outside getting a free ride.
You know, I'm
I think it's
very much in favor of the sailing program. And John, I agree with you. I think it's something that's unique to, well, not to Nahant, but certainly to lots of these communities on the coast that really we would hate to lose. And
It's not really what this is about, though, right?
I understand, but we also built a paddle tennis court with CPC money a few years ago, and that has an even more limited set of folks that participate in it. So
I think that's my point, right? So CPC money is used in interesting ways. It's public money that is used. I don't always agree with the way that what they fund.
yeah, I know, but there's lots of public money that's used for limited audience things. You could argue that we shouldn't be funding playgrounds because it's only for kids. And what about everybody that doesn't have a? That's a bit of a stretch, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think I also think that in instances where an organization, you know, if they were coming to us and asking for, you know, half the money or, you know, all the money to pay for it, that's a little different. I think it's a measured and proportional request in the context of that. If all the CPC articles, even the other ones that appeal to kind of a limit audience, if they only asked for, you know, 20% of the net cost of the projects, we'd be in much better shape. So I think they deserve at least some credit for providing, you know, 80% of the cost of the project.
I'd like to note, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'd like to note that I think that there are educational benefits to this. I think that sailing involves actually physics. So there's a lot that kids learn from sailing that is applicable to other aspects of their intellectual development and education. I also think it's physically, particularly in a day and age when we should be outdoors and we should be encouraging outdoor activities. I think it's physically very healthy. I also think that they learn more about the ocean. And I think that being out there is, again, educational in terms of marine environments, winds, you know, storms, all kinds of things that relate directly to living on the coast, but also more generally to understanding marine environments, winds, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, NOAA kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot to be gained from the sailing program that's much broader.
It also provides some employment for some of the teenagers
It
who have
does.
worked their way through the sailing program.
Okay, you know, we're not I'm sorry, Julie, we're not in any way disputing the how good the sailing program is.
Right.
That's not really up for question or debate, really.
Mhm.
The question is, do we give money to the Dory Club for floats? Is that a good use of public money?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair question, and I appreciate whatever perspective you have. But if I were to answer the question, I would say, yes, it is okay to give public money for that project, even though it is a private entity, given its significant commitment and demonstrated ability to enable a public program.
I agree. I also think that it offers leadership opportunities for youth. And I think youth leadership roles, opportunities, I think that's something that as a town, it's important to support.
Yeah. So the, you know, I will admit that before I joined the finance committee, I was on the town sailing program. So I've been involved with the Nahant sailing program for, you know, probably at least a dozen years, tangentially or intimately. And I will say that the program, almost with the exception of this ask by the program on the town, it is almost solely self-driven by volunteers and by people outside of what you would classify as the town. So the town does enable it. The town gives the base, the site in the wharf building at the wharf. The town does contribute, you know, I think it's in the ballpark of $5,000 to $8,000 of the roughly $25,000 operating cost of the program. But it does rely on kind of a dwindling number of citizen volunteers to enable the, again, Nahant sailing program. It's for the town, it's for everybody. And I just think if we were to decide not to fund this request, it would just be another signal to that population that, you know, maybe the town just really doesn't care and doesn't want to support the program, even if it's in a tangential way. And eventually the people putting forward the effort, that's going to dry up and it'll go away. I'm not saying that deciding to fund or not fund this article is going to be some binary influence in the future or the history or the, you know, the ability of the program to perpetuate itself. But I just think it would be a signal in a way.
We do not need to be unanimous as a group, and if you'd like to make a motion, it's fine.
And if I could just say one more thing, I don't sail, but it does say in here that the majority of the total cost of the project will be borne by the Dory Club and will be no less than $66,830. So it's possible that, you know, they'll have more than they do now by the time we pass this or don't pass this. So it might not be the full 17,000.
Right. And again, the you know, we're making a recommendation and the town's citizens will ultimately have the say. So
Right.
we can always remind that we're not casting the final lot.
I'd also like to add that I think that there's a safety issue here that's important. The docks, gangways are damaged, and I think it's important to have, for public safety issues for young citizens, to make this a safe environment. And given how we're having worse storms and worse damage, I think it's important to have a safe dock that they can get back to quickly.
Again, that's the dock is strictly for the use of the Dory Club. So moving forward, whatever, if someone wants to make a motion, we can move that forward. But before, one more quick question. Again, I don't think I heard the answer. I asked this before. In a limited warrant, will we go through these articles?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Can I ask?
It was not on, let me just look at my, no, the CPC articles were not on
The essential.
Tony's list of essential.
Right.
That's what I thought. Okay.
The first four that we skipped over, those were essential.
Okay.
Did I hear somebody correctly that we're already funding this organization?
We're not, so we're not funding the Dory Club.
No.
The town does fund the sailing program to a limited extent. I think there's a line item in the omnibus. I mean, I think it's around $5,000 to $8,000. And there's another slug of money that comes.
5,000 or 8,000?
Yeah, something like that. That
Jeff,
comes from the beach stickers.
The sailing program is independent of the Dory Club.
Yeah.
But they use the Dory Club's float and gangway to get onto and off of the water and store their boat.
Does that make sense, Jeff?
Yeah, I know the Dory Club has been here. When I was a kid, it was here.
It's the 1800s.
Yeah, you're right. It might have been the end of the 1700s.
I believe it's
But
one
I'm
of the
kinda-
oldest yacht clubs in America.
Has this never happened in the past? I mean, certainly there's been docks don't last that long, not in the North Atlantic.
No, I think in the past they have paid for the docks and floats and the gangway on their own. This iteration, I think, is a little more complex and a little more robust than previous versions. So it's going to have the ability to raise and lower the gangway if the weather turns bad, because in the past, I guess a lot of times when, in the late summer, early fall, when the wharf is still used, you have the storms roll through, and if the engineering and if the logistics of the physical equipment aren't ideal, then things do get banged up and beat up and abused. So I think this overall solution is attempt to make something more robust and more stable that'll last longer.
Okay, then but the assets, the actual floats and the gangway, those are owned by the Dory Club.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the Dory Club's had a long history of do-it-yourself sort of things. With I guess,
Anybody else have any comments or points they'd like to raise, or would someone like to make a motion?
I think I made a motion
Okay.
and we were discussing. So I would move that we approve the request.
I'll
I will-
second that.
Second? No, thank you.
And I think we've already had our discussion, but is there any additional discussion before we vote?
Well, I'm a rookie. This is my this is my first one here, and I'm wondering: is there any law that restricts a public organization, a town, from giving money to a private citizen or a private group, a private company?
No, there isn't. So the other layer to the CPC onion is one of the ways to think about it, it would be good if, it's too bad that Dana isn't here because I think he was on the CPC committee as a member.
Mhm.
So there's a whole nother committee like our committee that is tasked with, vetting all the proposals and all the projects and then picking the ones that they think meet and fit the criteria. So there's been a whole other group of people that have kind of, crossed all the T's and dotted the I's in terms of the legality and in their mind, the justification. And they have kind of pushed it then to us to kind of layer in another level of oversight. So that level of oversight, Jeff, doesn't typically happen by the finance committee. We kind of see the end product of what their process creates, and then we take it from there. Does that make sense?
So then this money is actually coming out of CPC funds.
Yes, it is.
I got it.
So all the funds, and maybe that was actually not a in hindsight, maybe not a fair thing to assume with all the newcomers. So all the things in Article 14 are related to that pool of money that gets pulled out as a surcharge to property tax. And then that money is put into a pool and is committed to, by statute, to specific uses in terms of open space, affordable housing, recreation. I can't remember what the 4 buckets are, but
The fourth one, and I forget, historic, I believe, historic preservation, I think.
so they do all the parsing of the proposals. Jeff, I won't share it now, but I will forward everybody on the committee the full gauntlet of CPC documents that kind of inform of the process and of the kind of financial high level financial aspects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess we're ready to vote. Fulgham, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Brown, aye.
Anderslice, aye.
Tarmy, aye.
Laura, no.
Okay.
I didn't
And
hear
Jeff?
Jeff.
And I abstain.
You sure can. Are you
I don't feel I'm knowledgeable enough.
okay?
Although maybe one last question.
Sure.
The Valley Road School, who owns that?
The town owns that, and
Oh, it does.
it's overseen by the Nahant Preservation Trust.
So the town has put, or it's overseen by it.
Right,
What about the Coast Guard station?
same thing.
Okay. So then any of these things that because they've put money into Valley Road, and that doesn't seem to be anything wrong with that. They put it into Coast Guard station, but you're saying has everything thus far been a town asset that the money has gone to?
They give a complete listing in the back of the warrant. Do you have last year's warrant?
I do.
Yeah,
Because
the
they
one,
did a
the one I
wonderful-
mentioned a while ago, the paddle tennis courts, there's not.
Right.
I think we've given money to.
I can hear something in the background.
Council on Aging.
Yeah, I'm looking through the book, Jeff, and I'm looking through projects as far back as 2008. There are things like the American Legion, the Women's Club,
Deal.
the Life Saving Station.
Tudor Beach Stairs.
The Village Church.
We've done the Dory Club before.
Yeah, there's a whole list of other non-town entities. I guess in Nahant.
Okay, so this is not a precedent-setting thing.
No.
No.
It isn't.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Okay. One vote down.
Now, John, before we go on, the next one is the Nahant Historical Society, which I know we approved.
Yeah.
But the Historical Society has formally withdrawn their request due to the fact that we're just not in a position to provide 100% match for this this year. We hope to come back next year with the same request.
Okay. Well, thank you. Sorry we couldn't squeeze it in this year, but I hope the money will be there for you.
Well, we're halfway to next year already, so.
Exactly.
All of a sudden, it doesn't really matter, right?
I know.
Hi, guys, it's Tony.
Hey,
Hi,
Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony.
What time is it?
We just made our first vote, so.
Great.
Yeah. The next one that we have.
We're also compiling a list of questions for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured that.
But you give us some credit. The idea is we're going to compile a list and try to come to you once rather than have 8 of bombard you independently.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You get all the credit in the world. You guys are, I just said this on the other committee page, and, you know, just want you guys to know, I think I've said it in the past, but I know how tough it is, especially right now with everything going on, as a volunteer to commit your time to this and in this type of format. So I just want to say thank you. I hope you guys know it doesn't go unnoticed, and we appreciate you all.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you. And we appreciate you.
Like,
Thank you.
Golly.
so H is the next article that we could choose to discuss and vote on. So again, this is the $20,000 requested by the Nahant Preservation Trust related to you know, the process planning and documents that are needed to kind of designate East Nahant as a state national historic district. You know, I guess you can kind of see the supporting statement. You can probably read it yourselves to give some context and color. You know, we have kind of in the past, when the committee has talked with the CPC about this, again, they've kind of, in theory, done their due diligence and believe it's a worthy and prudent expenditure of CPC funds. I think the committee in the past has had some hesitation, wondering about its, you know, ultimate motive. Seems to be wanting to kind of designate a portion of Nahant that's, you know, in a particularly contentious dynamic right now, potentially buttressing, you know, claims or ideas that will help that cause. So I don't know. I'm open to hear what other people think or questions they have.
I would say that this would benefit the people in the district and would not have any effect on other people. So it is a much more selective, I think, than the Dory Club, frankly. But that's my opinion.
Right, I see no negatives to this one.
Yeah, I don't either. And we can get grants based on this, right?
Correct.
which means that's helpful for the town financially.
Well, yes. And, you know, property owners as well.
Right.
But it benefits a select group, East Nahant.
Right, that's the district. You know, they could try to do the whole town, but that would be astronomical in time put into the research.
I don't have the document here, Bill, or do it, but the study that was done in 1989,
Right,
I think it identified other districts other than this East Nahant district. So
correct.
there was 3 or 4 different
Districts.
subzones that were identified districts.
Mhm.
And then this would just be the first one. So, you know, you could imagine that in the future, the other districts may be asking for the same type of remuneration to kind of enable a similar.
What I'm saying is, it's just, you know, what there was one noted that the Dory Club the float rather only benefits a select few, and this also benefits an even more select few, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the fact that it's not as, and I think the sailing program is much more widespread than this select East Nahant area.
Well, now East Nahant starts at Ocean Street. It's a huge district. And this would be just the first of possibly 3 or 4 districts that could come in at a later date.
Tony, do you want to add anything from a town's perspective on this one?
Honestly, I'd have to I need to take another look at this one. I remember, you know, when it first came up going, you know, this back in January. And I kind of recall and Julie answered it there. My question was, you know, why is the line drawn where it is? You know, what's the basis of the space? You know, what should it be, more of Nahant? Should it be less of Nahant? Should it be, you know, other things like that? We didn't sponsor it. I think there's some benefits to it. There's many benefits to it. It's just, and originally there was concerns about, would this limit, you know, town projects? Would this limit personal property projects on personal property, on residence property? And I don't think it does.
It does not.
Yeah, so I think, you know, I don't think it adds any type of additional level of permitting for the town if we're doing any type of work in the area or anything like that. So I don't think we have much of a concern. It was really more like, what's the basis of the area? Why, you know, why draw the line where it is? But so that's all I got for now. I got to take another look at it.
Yeah, I don't know why the districts were drawn the way they were. I think partly they tried to encompass, I think in this one, a lot of the oldest homes in Nahant are in this district. A lot of the Johnson homesteads are in this district. So I think that's why this one is so large.
So it's my sense that, you know, we've kind of kicked the can on this quite a few times, and I guess maybe rather than at least initially push it into the future, I guess rather than ask you what your vote is, are there people who think they know how they would vote and would be willing to vote tonight if a motion were entertained?
Yes.
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 Yes, from me.
Yes.
Okay, then I guess I would entertain a motion to
I will
recommend
motion, I'll make that motion.
Article H.
And I'll second it.
Further discussion?
What was the motion? Was the
Uh,
motion to approve?
To recommend.
Okay.
Further discussion? Fulgham, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Zahora, aye.
Ender Slice, aye.
Charmy, aye.
Lewis, abstain.
Brown, no.
Is that everybody?
That's everybody.
Okay. Next one. So again, I mean, I don't want to sound soft or wishy-washy here, but you know, this whole process of conducting these months and weeks of remote meetings, and knowing that the CPC committee has done the same, I think maybe I'm a little more forgiving and accepting of some of these articles when the dollar value, okay, $20,000 is a lot of money, but in the context of another $20,000 match, and you know, there are some big ticket requests that come later in the CPC. So
Yeah, and my other 2 cents on this is that
Yeah.
you know, funds can only be spent for these designated purposes. And I think since these things are come with the endorsement of the CPC, it's a higher bar, unless there's a really compelling reason to deny. You know, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, so having added that, for our next discussion, we have 14I, which is to appropriate $27,000 from CPC to basically renovate and improve the Lowlands softball field. So this again, this is put forward by the town. It's somewhat correlated to, you know, this summer we were supposed to have that mock of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall, the wall that heals.
Moving wall, the wall that heals.
Yeah. So Tony's thought in pushing this forward was to do 2 things: improve, you know, neglected infrastructure in terms of the recreational infrastructure, the softball fields. Money was put into the women's field. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. I guess it was last year. So kind of finishing the kind of beautification and enhancement of that area for its explicit purpose. And then also, you know, the fact that it'll be kind of a, you know, I guess the wall is going to come next year. So we still would like it to kind of be nice and respectful and in
You got it.
ship shape.
Yeah, you got it. Pretty much you pretty much have it all there. You know, rather short money, you know, for some work to be done on, like, you know, our main road. You know, it's right on Nahant Road. And when we did the women's field, the backstop, when we redid the backstop there right on the road, I mean, it made such an improvement, in my opinion, to the look of that area. So it's of the same stuff. So, you know, it's a backstop, it's fencing, it's benches, and it's just really, you know, cleaning up the space in anticipation for, you know, potentially you know, thousands of people that were planning on coming. Now it did get postponed to next year, and regardless, I think we should still pursue it, because it's, the backstop is falling down, the benches are falling down, they're all handmade by the people that play in the league, and, we should present better, I think, on the main road. And, it's relatively speaking, it's not too much of a dollar value, so. Any questions? I'm happy to rip through these ones that are from the town, and then you guys can just interrupt me on if you have any questions.
No, Tony, let me ask a different question. When will we know whether or not there's going to be an abbreviated warrant?
I've asked, hopefully in the next couple days. Hopefully by the next meeting. I mean, the Board of Selectmen don't meet until next Wednesday, so the vote wouldn't occur until then. But if there's an abbreviated warrant, there's prep for me to do for Wednesday's meeting. So I've asked, we're hopefully making a decision in the next couple of days. Today, we sat on a call with municipal leaders. The governor had a big conference call today regarding his new order. So there's still some elements that we're working out, but hopefully in the next couple of days.
I mean, I asked that because is there value in us going through each of these with the opportunity that it's not anything that's going to be discussed?
Do you want me to just give it a quick, I'll just go through just a quick explanation on them and then, or skip over them? I mean, whatever you guys want to do.
Well, okay.
We're wondering whether this is time well spent.
Well, one thing I'll say, Judy, is on my list of essentials, there's only two left that we have. We kicked the first 4 down the road. The other one is OPEB. I don't know if you were ready for voting on that. That has your name on it. And then the last one is the MWRA, which I would imagine we still need the numbers. So if we were to say, oh, let's just, abstain from voting any of the CPC articles, then we'd kind of drop to OPEB and MWRA. And then after that, there's the new articles that came last week. So we could dive into those, but.
Yeah, so we've already talked about this so I'm willing to make a motion to approve this and just.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Let it live or not.
Yeah.
Zohar, aye.
Katie, aye.
Army, aye.
Okay, Vanderslice, aye, on aye.
Fulgham, aye.
Brown eye.
Lewis, aye.
Okay, good. Next one, I think this again, Tony, I mean, I don't know how much we need to talk about it, but it seems like it's J is kind of almost a mandated requirement that we need to kind of bring the town hall up to code, and we can leverage CPC money with a matching state component to get it done. Is that essentially it?
Yes.
Okay.
Just so you know, it doesn't bring the entire building up to code, but it makes the main hall compliant, access to the main hall compliant, and it also makes access to the Tiffany room compliant, and then the bathrooms on those respective floors compliant. There's still other issues in the town hall, but these would be 2 huge steps towards getting there.
John, this is Jeff Lewis. Can you just a quick 2-minute blurb on this CPC? I'm looking at these. They must have their own budget.
They do.
They must know what they've got for revenues coming in and some pro forma, and they can extrapolate it and say, well, this is what we can do in the coming year.
Yes, they do. So the way this works is
So am I still sharing my screen? Can you see this spreadsheet
Yes.
up there?
Yes.
Do you see it?
No, we're still looking at the warrant.
Oh, okay. How
So,
do I?
so Jeff, there's a 3% surcharge on your property tax that funds all of the CPC stuff. That's where they get their revenue. Well, that's partially where they get their revenue. That 3% surcharge is matched by the state, generally not 100%. And it's money that comes from the lottery, I think. It used to be quite a large percent. In recent years, it's been like a 60-something% match. So that's their source of revenue. And then they can expend money only on projects that fall into 4 categories. And John or Tony, help me on, Judy, anybody, help me on this. Community preservation, or historic preservation, open space, affordable housing, and recreation. Those are the 4. So
I
they
actually
can
think
only be spent on those things. There's a mechanism by which different town organizations make an application to the CPC for their project. And then the CPC meets and prioritizes the projects they want to approve, and they fall within their budget. CPC can borrow, so they can tackle projects that are larger than any individual year's revenue by borrowing and then, paying the debt service out.
Cover the debt service from future revenues.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just add,
How did I do, Tony?
excellent. I'm just going to add 2 little things. One, that it's important to know is that the 3% surcharge that Bob mentioned is 3% of what you would pay in taxes of the value of your home minus $100,000. So it's actually not like an additional 3% on top of the 10.5
From the assessed value.
Right. It's actually your assessed value minus $100,000, and then apply the town's tax rate, and then 3% of that amount. So it's actually much less than, and the reason I bring that up or tell you that, Jeff, is because in the past there's been criticism of, whether we should or shouldn't have CPC, and that always kind of gets mixed about, how much are you actually putting into it out of your bill. And it's smaller. It's actually smaller than just 3% of on top of your bill. And then the other thing was that they figure out, okay, how much is coming from the residents, how much is coming from match, and then they have to spend a certain percentage on each one of those items that Bob mentioned, hit on the 3 different categories. So it gets, you'll see, like, even in years when maybe there wasn't a housing project, they'll still drop money into the housing reserves to satisfy that requirement.
Tony?
Yeah.
Okay.
I note that there is like
Thank you, Tony.
165 that the CPC is giving. Is there a match from the town?
That is, let's see, let me see. Where do you see the 165? On the,
Line 16.
so no, so the project cost is 165. So that's what there isn't a match from the town. That's what we applied for from the CPC.
But the two buckets, DeWitt, are 128,000 from revenues from this FY 2021, and then there's that 36,000 that has been held in reserve under that category. So they're pulling some from savings, and then 128 from what's coming in next year. So that's how you get to 165.
And sometimes the people that the organizations that apply for these projects will come and say, look, we're only requesting half of the amount we really need. We're going to match from our own funds the other half. And CPC tends to look more favorably on projects like that where it's not entirely CPC, but there's a mix of CPC applicant funding.
This is entirely CPC.
The
Yeah.
165 is, yes.
So
That particular project, yes.
One of the
So-
things that
So we look at, when the town is putting, we're looking at, let's use CPC funds for these projects that we may not have our own, capital funds for, because we're getting a match from the state.
But is
So
there a
of
match
that-
from the state?
So of that 165 that we're getting from CPC, some of that, a portion of that, if you look at the 128 that's in the 21 revenue, for instance, some of that is raised locally, but some of that is matched from the state.
Yeah, so Bill,
Do we have a percentage on?
all CPC revenue is matched by the state. So all of those projects have a state match component to them.
Oh, okay. But do we have a percentage of match?
we have that spreadsheet somewhere. I can find it. It's let me just,
It changes annually. This year.
yeah.
We're actually looking at a potential increase in the match because the legislature committed to putting more money into the state budget for it because so many new communities had come on and kind of, drained the bucket, so to speak. So we were actually looking at an increase, but then coronavirus hit and we may actually be looking at a decrease compared to years past and somewhere maybe around 15%.
So
We expect the legislature, once we get out of the coronavirus world to, pick up where they left off prior and commit to, increasing revenue or increasing funding in the program down the road.
So DeWitt, I'm looking at a table here that recaps the match percentage from 2006 all the way to 2020. And then in those early years, for the first 5 years, from 2005 to 2009, when there were probably fewer communities participating, the match was 100%. And then it drops to 77, 60, 60, 60, 100, 72, 68. And then the low in 2017 was 47%. I'm sorry, in 2018, it was 40%. So that's the low point. So the last 2 years, it's been 50% and 59%. So we're all, typically we're getting more than 50% on our money from the state. This year, obviously, it's likely to come in on the low end, likely a new low. But then again, conflicting there is I looked, if you look and see where the CPA trust fund comes from, it comes from fees that are attached to the Registry of Deeds documents. So that's where the money comes from. Bob had mentioned he thought it came from lottery, but it's actually not lottery. It's a surcharge on documents processed by the Registry of Deeds. And those fees were raised last year on a state level. So when I'm looking at this piece of paper in front of me, at the point of, late in the year or relatively early, the funds coming in to supply CPA were higher than they had been in previous years. This is all before COVID, but I think there's hope that the matches, even though it may be lower this year in that, who knows, 30 to 40% range, they're earmarking more money for that fund. So one would think that the 50% ballpark is reasonable.
Can I just, the way I'm understanding this is the 165 is all from the CPC. But the funds that the CPC is giving are derived from monies from real estate and and real estate and fees, which have been in the past matched at 100% at the most and at 40% at the least. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but don't focus on the 165. It's what you said is true of all of them.
Yes, that's right. It's a bucket.
Yeah.
Wherever CPC gets their monies.
Right.
Right.
Various and sundry places that I can't remember the sources.
So do
And
we have,
whose responsibility is it to manage all these projects?
Who manage the projects themselves?
Yeah,
It depends on, so like for the town, we manage the projects. You know, last year there was an appropriation out of this for library, and there's a library building committee, and
right.
they pretty much manage that. A lot of like the town stuff kind of just gets done through us, you know, through the DPW superintendent and our town engineer.
So then their role is strictly funding.
Sometimes a project will include costs for engineering and project management. Sometimes it won't.
But the CPC itself does not have engineers and project managers.
Correct.
Well, that helps me a lot. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
anybody want to make a motion?
65? Is that where we are?
I move that we recommend the funding for the town hall.
ADA improvements.
ADA improvements, thank you.
I second it.
Fulgham, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Lewis, I.
Stormy, aye.
Anderson,
Brown eye.
we got to get better at this.
Have you gone, Bob?
Yes.
Okay.
I was an I,
Okay, I didn't hear you.
or I was an I on J.
Okay, all right.
And I'd like to add that I think ADA, I think it's a very important aspect of town policy and support. I mean, I think the ADA is an extremely important commitment policy. So I'm very glad that we're continuing that commitment. I mean, I know
Hey,
it's
Barbara.
a legal commitment, but I still want it to be underlined that it's important.
Hey, we might be creating a ADA accessibility committee if you want to wear two hats.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I did the
Excellent.
same. I did the same for the college at Wellesley for years.
Oh,
So,
excellent, excellent,
happy.
excellent.
Okay, so
Met with architects, you know, looked at all of the signage, all of that kind of stuff. It's very important.
Amen.
so K is another request for recreation-related uses for a playground to be built on the current site of the Little Nahant Playground. When we've talked about this in the past, there has been some discussion that when the Flash Road, the library playground, and the Johnson School playground were redone, I would say, you know, when my kids were, you know, younger, 15 years ago, 15 to 20 years ago, there was a significant, almost at least 50% match from the public. So this match is a little less than I would have liked to have seen, given precedent of other playgrounds. But the other point that's been made is there's no real recreation space in or near Little Nahant. So once you start making your way across the causeway on Short Beach, that's it. So it seems kind of fair to that geographical location of town to spend some money and to do something to make things better and to improve things. So that's the discussion we've had in the past. And is there any other points or questions?
We had put in for, over $100,000 last year for this one, and really kind of got some, I wouldn't say like pushback, but legitimate comments or questions about, kind of go back to the drawing board and think of how you can make the most of what you have. And this is a tough spot for playground equipment because of the in the wintertime, it floods pretty quick, and the ocean there, rips through from Doggy Beach over to Short Beach in that area. But since then, we had to pull a piece of equipment out of there because it was so rusted, and it was such a hazard for kids that, we just had to pull it out of there. We also got some money from FEMA we put in for resurfacing. We had said that in the storm of 2018 that the flooding pushed a lot of the sand that was in the surface there out to the street, and it washed it away. So we got some money from FEMA to restore that part. And we're also looking to, we've done some restorations, and we're looking to do further restoration to the dune adjacent to this area, which will help protect it a little bit more. So this is a small bite at the apple. We did, we sanded down a lot of the equipment and repainted it, and it looks a lot nicer. So we'll put a nice little, play structure in there, get the new sand and a new border. We'll be in pretty good shape. And I also suspect we had never had time to talk to the neighbors ahead of time, but I suspect that the neighbors in that area, would be willing to pitch in for, additional features to be added, whether it be benches or things of that nature. So again, short money, that'll go a long way.
All right, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Is that Bob?
No, Barbara seconded it.
I
Okay,
second it.
thank you.
Any
Folger,
order? Lewis, I.
Beatty, aye.
Zahora, aye.
Brown eye.
Folger, aye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Carmy, aye.
All right, another one done. L is next. Hopefully we can go quickly through this one as well. This is, again, as Tony would qualify, short money to enhance and improve and restore the basketball court that's outside of the compost area / transfer station, as we like to call it. So this is not the basketball court down by the tennis courts at the Flash Road site. This is the other court. I think there was some questions early on, why do we need to do yet another basketball court if we're going to do Castle Road, or if we're going to do the Flash Road playground and we're going to do this court, and one was recently done at the school. And I think the answer was they serve kind of different groups of kids. The older kids tend to play at the court by the transfer station or the dump. And, Tony rationalized it as, it's hasn't been done in years, and, he thinks they're getting very high bang for their buck in terms of the $12,000 sum. So that's where
You got it. I mean, listen, you throw a little bit money at it now, you're preventing a huge job down the road. This is basically like a top coat, like a sealer and paint on the existing pavement, and then putting in new hoops and fencing along the edges where like the bushes are, on two sides of the basketball. So it'll definitely beautify the area, and we'll throw an extra 10 years of life onto this court. So they actually did this. The company I got the quote from actually just did this in Beverly over by my house with CPC money, and I went and grabbed the guy's card. I mean, it was like the same size court, and they did it for 12 grand, and the place looks awesome. So pretty good deal, and I think it's an easy one. But you got it, John. You had it right.
All right, you need a motion?
Yep.
So moved.
I'll
Second,
second it.
I'll start. Vanderslice, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Brown eye.
Lewis, I.
Sahara, aye.
Fulgham, aye.
Charmy, aye.
Okay, we haven't voted M. M is again paying debt service out of the CPC fund on the $400,000 that was borrowed last year. So we kind of, we kind of have to approve this. We committed to the project. We took out the loan, and now we got to pay it back. Again, it's the second year of a 10-year bonding.
Is
So
any of
moved.
it principal?
I would assume so. I don't know. I don't have the debt schedule in front of me, but I mean, these are generally, Tony, do you remember? I mean, it's pretty low interest, and I don't know if you're paying it off in 10 years and $60,000 a year. I think you got to be paying some principal and interest there, I would think.
I don't know for sure, but I
Yeah.
can find out from Debbie. If added to the list of questions. I don't want to steer you wrong. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Well, it's not a big question with me. It's sort of like the horses out of the barn. We already spent the money. We got to pay it back.
Right.
Right.
All right.
I think, so one of the things that we're kind of cursed with in this Zoom and WebEx environment is typically when we're all sitting around our big oval table in the basement of town hall, we have these massive 3-ring binders that have, 4 inches of paper in them. And those 4 inches of paper, now it seems like a little bit of a Luddite kind of way, but I miss sitting around the table and plowing through those 3-ring binders, because a lot of the questions you ask about, the debt, the principal, the payments, all those debt schedules, all that information is on paper in a binder. So you at least have that to look forward to beyond other things once this COVID situation ends. So I'm trying to think if Tony, I don't know if is there an opportunity for the new members to get kind of a mimic of that massive binder that I know it's late in the game, but would that be onerous?
They take time to put together, and we are.
You know what? Maybe we can ask.
We are taxed, but we should be able to. I think we should be able to do. We should. It just can't. I can't say we're going to have them ready tomorrow.
Okay. So no, I got that. So
why don't you and I go to Perry and to how quickly we forget and see if we can recapture the old books.
Okay. I was also going to say there's got to be I kind of remember, I bet Lori never picked hers up. So I don't know if you go down into the basement, those
I might
binders,
have a couple extras lying
they're
around.
probably, they might be lying around. So why don't you look and see if you have any lying around, and we'll try to find the old holders and see if they're willing to give them up or pass them on.
Yeah. We should be able to, we can, let me rephrase my answer. Yes, we will get new binders for the new members.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah. We'll first see if we can recycle what we've already printed and bound. But I think from the questions you asked, all three, Jeff, Barbara, and DeWitt, you'll benefit from having that encyclopedia in front of you. So I'm sorry, I lost track of where we were.
We had a motion on the floor from Judy.
May I make a motion to approve this debt service payment?
Seconded.
Beatty, aye.
Lewis, I.
Brown eye.
Sahara, aye.
Anders, aye.
Oldham, aye.
Charmy, aye. Who seconded that?
I think I did.
All right, thanks, John.
Okay, so we're down to the last remaining CPC article, which is the East Point eminent domain. And I think we can just, as quickly as I can scroll by it, I will, because we don't have the report or the information that we've asked to have from the town, but Tony says that it hopefully will be coming soon, and then we can discuss it.
Yeah, Tony, any update or guarantee when that's going to be done?
Sorry, I was on mute. What was that?
When will the cost impact of East Point study be done?
So we hope in the next 2 weeks. However,
We can't
half
hope.
of it-
We have to have it. I mean, this is absolutely imperative at this point.
yeah, I know. As I mentioned the last time, a couple of the questions that the FinCom had were fairly doable by KP Law, and I believe they've made a lot of progress on those two. And the other two questions, which I think one of them had to do with tax impact, property tax impact, and like more of the quantitative question, I think was they, pulled in RKG to answer those questions so that they can provide you guys, a response to what you're looking for. But RKG believes they can get a lot of that work done in the next 2 weeks. Bringing them in is costing another $12,000. But I know it's a big, in the grand scheme of what we're talking about here, it's an important thing to have. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks, if we, if the warrant obviously gets pared down, then it's not as much of an issue and you guys have more time to review. But I'm pushing ahead as if we're having the full thing at this point until otherwise, until we decide otherwise.
Right, but we've got to light a fire under them. I mean, it was like May when this request was first made, so this is what we were asking for is not a 3-month.
Really, Tony, and there's lies the problem, right? So it's a lot of money the town is talking about. We did ask for this information in May. I understand that they have to bring out other people, and I understand that there's a cost. The cost of not knowing is much, much greater than this. And here's the thing, we're not going to be able to move forward with any kind of a recommendation at all without the data. And what we'll have to do is tell the town that there's no way that they should possibly make a decision because there's no data. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. So, to me, this is such a big thing. It's worth moving town meeting until you get the information. But at that rate, we're sitting outside in the field in our winter coats.
I worked on a backup plan today for that.
Tell us it doesn't involve space heaters.
No, it Lynn Auditorium, which holds 2,000 people. So, you know, we could, if we do need it as a backup for a rain date or a special town meeting that maybe just has 1 or 2 of these articles on the warrant at a later date. We have that as a backup plan, but I hear you. Definitely, listen, the fire has been lit on KP and RKG to get this produced for you guys. So I know it's been a while, but they're working on it, and hopefully it gets to you, you know, sooner than 2 weeks. I think, you know, from what I understand from them was that it was more challenging of a task than expected. So, you know, so they're definitely working to get it for you guys as soon as they can. And I've told them, and they've been told by the selectmen as well, that it's imperative that you guys get this information, you know, in enough time to digest it and make a recommendation.
Judy, I also think it's fair, you know, your point about us needing to rely on data and numbers. I think it's fair to pay respect to Bob's effort to generate some numbers and some data.
Oh
But
my gosh.
yeah, and I know you weren't absolutely not slighting him, but I think, you know, collectively we all agree that we wanted another opinion, a professional opinion, to kind of buttress the work that Bob did. So
Thanks, John. I did not in any way mean to imply that at all. I think
Yeah, no,
that Bob put the effort forward, or we wouldn't have had any base at all to start with. And here's the thing, Bob put the effort forward and they have a base, which is why I can't figure out why it's taken so long to get it done. They weren't starting from scratch.
You know, yeah, just for the record, they did not consult me at all. So whatever they're doing is completely independent.
yeah.
That's unfortunate. But no, I'm grateful that Bob did that. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have had anything to start with.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
So that takes us out of the CPC and.
So no, John, I don't mean to drag us back in, but
yeah,
you know, when we're at the point to discuss N,
yeah.
who else? Are there others we would want to invite to join that discussion? And I'm just throwing out, I mean, do we want somebody from the CPC here? Do we want perhaps an attorney? If we're going to do it,
Yeah,
let's
I mean, that's
do it
probably
right.
not. I mean, for the newcomers to the committee, I think having, you know, if somebody from the CPC, whether it's Lynn or somebody else here with us, and you know, maybe somebody from KP Lodge, is it Jeff? Jeff can come again, and I think there's going to be a sufficient amount of interest and debate, you know, no matter what the numbers are, to ask a full range of questions to kind of get at it. So I think you make a good point. So whenever we put that, or whenever we think that's going to end up on the agenda, we should absolutely coordinate those other comers. And I don't know if it's, you know, at least somebody from the select board, law, you know, legal representation from the town's perspective, obviously Tony, Lynn, I don't know, who else? Can you think of anybody else? Okay, so does that answer your question, Bob, or does that address your point?
I was just trying to think, you know, so we're prepared when we're going to discuss it, we ought to be prepared to, you know, try to do it once, because we're not going to have time to do it much more than that.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. So I guess anybody, this is opportunity for the other members of the committee, again, to think of the questions, data, or perspective that you would want to have to help inform this significant decision. Like what do you need to be in a position to make a vote on this article? So I'm not asking you, I mean, if you want to throw stuff out now, that's fair. But if you want to mull it over and spit it out later, that's okay too.
John, these committee members haven't heard what Bob put together. So is there some value to taking half an hour and having Bob walk through so that they have some base when the stuff comes in?
You mean right now or at another meeting?
Gosh, I don't know about right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
I'm happy to do it, and that's actually, it's probably a good way to surface a lot of the issues.
Agreed. I think if we have the professional opinion come in, and without the base of what Bob did and why we've questioned and why we've asked for professional opinion, I think we're doing the other members a disservice.
Okay, I'm convinced. Jeff, DeWitt, Barbara, what do you guys think? Do you want to hear, maybe we won't give you a half an hour, Bob, but maybe 10-ish minutes, and we'll see how fast you can do it?
Any information would be wonderful.
Yes.
Sorry, Jeff, what was that? Okay.
Yes, Bob, very helpful.
Okay, well, why don't we start? I'll email it out to, well, everybody, including old and new members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along.
So I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Are you going to give us a quick recap now, or you're just going to send it now and then we're going to talk about it later?
Yeah, I thought I would send it and then we could talk about it at the next meeting.
Thursday?
Thursday.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, it's 8:45.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we jump out of the, so OPEB was the next article outside of the CPC articles that we haven't voted. That has, we had talked at some point in time about beefing up our contribution to this fund. I think that's why we had.
What is? We probably should explain what the heck it is.
Yeah. You want to do that?
You want me, OPEB? So,
Sure.
so sorry, this is Tony. I'll just jump in. It's other post-employment benefits. So mainly the reason, a lot of what we put the money into here for is it's deemed as a liability or it has an impact on our bond rating. So we do have an obligation to fund this account. It would take us an extraordinary amount of time to have it fully funded. But, as long as we're putting our commitment, we've done an analysis, we've talked to financial advisors, and $25,000 a year into OPEB, stabilizes that liability for us as far as helping, keep our bond rating high. It's a similar scenario with stabilization, the rainy, AKA the rainy day fund. So in the past, we only had like $3 in this account. And last year, same with similar to stabilization. Last year, we put 100 in the stabilization and we put 25 in OPEB. And those two things are, I believe are things that the finance committee has been pushing for many years to be priorities of the town's budget, and they're commitments of mine. So long as I'm in this position. OPEB this year, there's, that being said, this year, when we're talking about essential, if we're doing a pared down version of the warrant and we're trying to split it up into essential versus non-essential, OPEB is one of the ones that we could potentially do a year without. Stabilization as well. However, we just got on the right track with both of these, and I wouldn't want to take a step off of that right track.
Can I add a quick note here?
Yeah. Yeah.
I did some research on Article 16, which was the stabilization funds. And unless I'm reading the statute wrong, last year, you put together an omnibus budget, and included in that budget was $25,000 for OPEB and $100,000 for stabilization fund. And according to the way the statute is written, the way you presented it was that nothing was going to happen unless the Prop 2.5 was approved by the voters. And the same thing was with the stabilization fund. And the Prop 2.5 override was voted on by the voters and passed it, which means that these funds of the 25,000 and the 100,000, they're already funded from the override. This is not additional funding, it's level funding from last year.
Yeah, so last year, it was, the purpose of the override was really to improve the financial health of the town. And part of that was, stabilizing our bond rating and building these reserves up and the OPEB. And, so we made those appropriations contingent upon the override passing. Exactly.
Which means that those funds are still coming in this year.
Yes.
So you've tied those funds to those amounts.
Well, only last year, the contingency only existed for last year. It was basically, we were saying, if the override doesn't pass, we're not going to put this 100 and this 25 into these two accounts. So when the override passed, then it triggered the other two articles as well. So this year, we're not pushing for an override or anything. We want to continue to make those two a priority and put them and appropriate those funds in there.
But last year's 2.5, you're still going to get that 2.5 this year.
Yes. Yep. It was a general override. Yep.
Therefore, these funds should come from that 2.5.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I think so. So the way that the finance committee, the conversation went last year is, to get us on board with, essentially expanding the budget by roughly $625,000, which is, I think, of the ballpark of what that 2.5
Yep.
that brought in. We didn't want that 625 just to go into the general fund and kind of be flittered away. So we made the mandates last year explicitly that money had to go into OPEB and stabilization. I think if you look back in the letter in the front of the book last year, we made the point that the $25,000 into OPEB was kind of a drop in the bucket in terms of the, $1 to $2 million. I don't remember what the number is, but It's definitely millions, the liability. So we expected that OPEB contribution to be significantly higher than $25,000 in future years. So when you make the point that, we already have 25 and 100 committed to those buckets, that was, there's no legal binding requirement that the town do that other than that first year. So this is kind of like Tony said, him kind of owning up to the commitment he made to us and putting it on the warrant again, and it's up to us to kind of, maybe.
Last year's override was a general override, not a.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, they could have presented us a budget and a warrant that had OPEB taken back down to 5,000 and 50,000 in stabilization. They could have done that, but they didn't. He kind of is committing to the path that we, in essence, mandated last year. But it's, the only way for us, the people, either the people on this committee or the people in the town, to hold them to it is to actually make the votes at town meeting. So there's no.
And, when it comes to stabilization, this year, in my opinion, this year is exactly why you want stabilization. If going into this next fiscal year, the uncertainty about, revenues from the state, we could, if we had a $1 million in our stabilization account, we could have said, all right, well, we estimate, based on what other communities are estimating, we think, we might get hit $200,000 less from state aid. So let's put a warrant article in here to take $200,000 out of the stabilization account so that we don't have to make cuts to our general fund. So we don't have the ability to do that because we only have $200,000 in our account right now. So I think, even though it's an uncertain year, this is exactly why you want stabilization. So I think we double down on the commitment. We should continue doing it and on both. And it really should be, if we, in the ideal world where, hopefully in about the next month or two, we have close to final financial policies, almost at the top of the list, the first thing you do when you're putting the budget together is take 100 off the top in the stabilization and 25 off the top in the OPEB, if not more. So that's the plan going forward too.
Now I'm confused. So that override last year, you're saying that the intent was not to take that 125 and continue going forward with it?
Last year, let me put it this way. Last year, without the override, we would not have been able to afford to put money into those two accounts. So we said, let's do this override, and part of the override money will go towards those two accounts. And it's a general override, so we will make the commitment to do this every year going forward. But the vote last year that those appropriations were contingent upon the override was only specific to last year.
Oh.
So every year from now on, it's just simply a commitment of the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and myself to, is to deposit money into those accounts. But it's every year it's going to take a new vote, a new warrant article.
So many pockets.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
But I think this.
Well, it helps me understand it. Okay.
This is Bill Brown. We're putting the money that these monies are going to come from the override, or have they already come from the override?
It
Well,
doesn't.
that's what I was assuming.
It doesn't exactly. So, all right. So what I'm gathering from your questions are that the override was a general override. And so you're required to make these appropriations each year. Is that what you guys are thinking?
That's how I was interpreting the override and those two funds.
Okay. So you can't vote on a future fiscal year appropriation in the current fiscal year budget process. So it would never tie, you can't, I guess, tie the hands of a future legislative body, if that makes sense. So it was simply, the contingency was only in effect to last year's override question.
Can I try it a different way, Tony? So
Yeah,
last year
please.
there was an override which basically increased
Our taxes.
our taxes and the town's operating budget by what, 600 and something thousand dollars? That override is a general override and could be spent for basically anything that would be a normal expenditure of the town. There is, however, a personal commitment from Tony and town management that of that 600,000, 100,000 will go to stabilization and 25,000 will go to OPEB in perpetuity. But it's not binding, it's a personal manager's commitment. How was that? Did I misspeak, Tony?
No, I think you got it right.
I
think
understand it.
The other question was, did the money already come from the override? Or, I guess the
override has disappeared now.
imagine that, we're starting from that new point now. And all that money comes in and we're deciding how to spend it. And the first two expenses in our, according to our commitment, would be into these buckets. Last year, had the override not passed, we wouldn't have had the extra 600,000, of which 125 went into those two buckets. The override passed, we put a portion of it in there, and now this year, every year from then, we're building 2.5% above the previous year's tax rate. We're capped at 2.5%. And that's how much money we bring in. And every year we decide how we're going to spend that total amount of money. I hope between Bob and I that answered or solved some
It
of
does.
that
I was
confusion.
just, I read that Mass General Law, Section 31D, and that's where I got it from. So wrong quote. GL 45B.
There are overrides that can be designated for.
Yeah, that's how I was interpreting it.
You might have been reading about a different category.
Yeah, the question for the override was not tied to the appropriation. The appropriation had a contingency on the question for the override passing.
Hey, you can't blame a guy for trying.
Well, you're going to have it anyways, because it's an important thing. We all agree that it's an important thing for us to be funding, so.
I'm good.
And again, the reason that we've already voted on Article 16, the reason we haven't voted on 15 is because we were hoping to figure out a way to increase it beyond the 25. But in the current likely constrained environment, maybe we should just.
If the warrant goes out saying 25, can it be changed on town hall floor to a larger number? Should money be available?
You just would have to identify where you're pulling it from, I guess.
Yeah. Right.
I understand the point. I guess I would say that a higher amount versus 25 based on like what we got back from DLS and our financial advisors, 25 makes the same impact on our bond rating protection side as 30 or 40 or 50. Certainly, it's going to take us a lot longer to get to total funded, but not many communities have it fully funded.
Yeah.
And it's not a huge issue. So I would, I'd rather build up stabilization if anything, but either way, yeah, it could change on the floor.
I will make a motion to approve this.
I'll second that.
Louis, aye.
Zohara, aye.
Fulgram, aye.
Did you get mine?
Vanderslice, aye.
All right. The next one is 18, MWRA borrowing.
Yeah. I'd like some statement to find out how 18, 22, 23, 26, and 34 are related.
They're cousins.
They're cousins or what?
Hey, Tony, is 18 the 0% interest or very low interest borrowing? Is that what
Yeah.
that is?
Yes, exactly. So MWRA offers 0% interest borrowing. Because of COVID, they suspended payback on these loans or extended payback on these loans, that you don't have to start paying it back, I think, until 2 years later instead of the very next year. Extremely low interest. So it's something that we have a ton of water capital infrastructure needs in the town.
Yeah.
And, so as long as this program's around, we feel it's a good one to take advantage of. But if we pare down to essential, if we pare down, this is something that may or may not stay on the warrant if we pare down to essential versus non-essential.
If we're not obligated to pay it, we've earned a reprieve for a year or two.
It makes sense to authorize it, right? And then we can make the decision if we want to go ahead and do the borrowing. But
Okay. Yeah.
So I agree, Bob, but it comes down to that, if we're doing a pared down warrant and I'm going to be telling the public, like, we're only going to do the essentials and we don't want to bring a lot of people out because of public health reasons. I don't want to do anything that, would, not be be truly essential. So.
Yep.
My name is on this one, so I have to ask, is there any potentially serious short, midterm outcome if we don't go forward with this? Potentially missing out on the opportunity of utilizing the program and not being able to accomplish some water capital projects that we have in the pipeline.
Are we discussing
the
17 or 18?
Say that again?
Are we discussing 17 or 18?
Yeah. Hey, John,
18.
can you put back the warrant article in the screen share?
Oh, I thought I had it up still. Sorry.
It's 18.
Sorry, I thought it was. Yeah, we're talking about We're talking about 18 right now. That has Henry's name on it.
Right. This is mine now.
Oh, it's yours?
So-
Good. Better you. I thought it was me.
The sheet that I have says it has
It's
brown in it.
right.
Oh, okay.
I have that
Good.
it's brown.
Not mine. Yay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess I would say that the risk here is that you know, the infrastructure needs only grow, right? So if we don't do it, then we're missing out, potentially missing out on a program that's 0% interest, and allowing helping us fund projects that, you know, aren't going to just suddenly get better on their own. So, you know, and just for an example, the last, I think, 3 borrowings that we've done under this, we have combined and are breaking ground in the next couple weeks on Furbish Road, Howe Road, Furbish, Howe, and another street. I forget the other one, but you know, doing, you know, going from like a 1-inch water main on Furbish to an 8-inch water main, adding fire hydrants, you know, doing good projects with the money. So.
And this happens every year too. So this is,
Right.
it's almost like it's an expense line item because it just keeps rolling
Yeah,
around.
Where's
for
this
the-
article? Which article does this refer to in the 2019?
It's written the same way. I'm not sure. I don't remember what number it was.
I'll tell you in a second, but it's the same title.
And again, just for another point of clarification for the new members, what this article does is it authorizes the town to do the borrowing.
It's Article
doesn't-
22.
It doesn't require that we go ahead and do the borrowing. It authorizes us to do the borrowing.
So the way I see it is you know, maybe it isn't essential. It's a 0% interest loan. It's something we typically do every year. So I don't see the downside in somebody making a motion and voting it, and then we kind of potentially, you know.
Well, my problem with this thing is that this is monies for MWRA, and then you look down on 2022, and then and also 23 and 26. You also have monies, and I wonder how all these things. These are different pockets, and I don't understand how they all are.
So so this one is, this is a borrowing article under a program that's provided by the MWRA, and it's for water projects. We get our drinking water through the MWRA. The other ones that you mentioned, which is 22, that's sewer capital. We actually, our sewer goes to the Lynn Water Sewer Treatment Plant, so we don't actually send our sewer to MWRA. And that one is a borrowing article that we were approved for the state revolving fund, or the sewer rate relief fund through DEP. That's also a low interest loan program that we can borrow through.
DEP.
And then what'd you say, 23 and 26?
26 is another wastewater amendment that.
Yeah, that's more of a policy thing than a borrowing.
And 34 is the lowlands, and which is also kind of sewerage, and they're all sort of interrelated, I think.
That's stormwater
That's stormwater.
and a citizen's petition. But yeah, so you got although we're dealing, you know, generally with water and all of these, they're different. They are different categories: drinking water, stormwater, sewer water, all handled differently.
Okay, but there's no, you know, I can't see any reason not to do 18, because you say it's a zero interest loan and the payments are deferred. So that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so if you guys,
Bill,
if you guys
would you
wanna
like to
vote
make a
on it, then
motion,
we'll
sir? You want to make a motion, Bill?
I'm looking at the recommended thing since this is my thing. Okay. Yes. Could I recommend, well, make a motion to have a vote on Article 18 with MWRA borrowing? Is that how you make the motion?
Second,
Thank you.
Beatty, aye.
Brown eye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Zohara, aye.
Fulgham, aye.
Lewis, I.
Starmy, aye.
Okay, so that, on
I asked
my
another
list, that take, sure.
In the warrant from last year, this article required a 2/3 vote for passage. Is that also true for this?
I think, yes, I think.
yes, I think Jen was, I think
Borrowing.
any
Yeah.
borrowing article would require a 2/3 vote.
Okay.
So now on my list, what I would have done is the updated warrant that Tony sent us on the 6th that had, a handful of things like the veterans work off, the senior deferred property taxes,
Where the hell did that go?
and then had 2 sale of town-owned land articles. And then it had the tree bylaw and the parking violations. Should we move those to next week, or Tony, do you want to tell us about the
Oh, there they
town-owned
are.
land kind of
Found them, I think.
file?
Yeah, basically, this is similar to, if you guys recall from the special town meeting a couple, maybe years ago now or last time around, but Beth Kelly on Bayview Ave had a similar scenario. This is Frank Cardilli on Antigua Way. He has a permitted stairwell on the stairway on the front side of his house, but it was permitted, who knows, that way back, years and years ago, permitted by the town, but it actually encroaches onto town property on the town public way. So he's looking for 192 square feet or so to transfer from the town to him, so that when he leaves this house to his kids, there's no issues with the deed, and came to the Board of Selectmen to request that they add it to the town, came and made the request and asked what the process was. So the board, the town has to approve or give the Board of Selectmen the authority to abandon that property and give them the authority to sell that property. Then, if that passes, then it gets referred to the Town-Owned Land Study Committee, who will then go into, an analysis of running comps and trying to establish a reasonable price for the property that that could be up for sale. And then the Board of Selectmen have to follow Chapter 30B procurement laws, and actually put it out to bid, just like Coast Guard housing, if that were to be approved for sale. But in this scenario, there's really only one bidder, given that it's for the property that the steps are sitting on.
Who pays for that, Tony? Who pays for all of that?
For who would pay for the property?
No, who would pay for all the work that goes into that in order for us to sell them the property?
There's really no cost associated with it. I'm the chief procurement officer for the town, so it's just a matter of putting together the paperwork and putting it up to bid like we did under, so it's really more time than it is a cost. We don't hire anybody. You know, there may be some legal costs to make sure that we're following the letter of the law, the procedure appropriately, but there's really no major costs associated with it.
All right, so is this, maybe I misunderstood, is this already in a right of way? Or is this?
Yeah, it's a dead end street. It's Antigua Way. It's the first left off of Nahant Road, as you are, going through the business district there. It's on the left side before the exit of Greystone. And he's the last house on the road, and his steps just extend into, honestly, if you drove down the road, it wouldn't even look like it's in the road, but it's more of how it's mapped out on paper.
Have the selectmen voted on this? Do the selectmen have a position?
Yeah, so they opened, they asked to include this on the warrant, so.
They're in favor of this?
Yeah.
We don't have to in any way approve or disapprove this as a citizen's position, or is this not? This is not a citizen's position. This is something we have to.
It's not a citizen's petition at the way that it got on. Typically, Beth Kelly came on through citizen's petition.
Right.
This is, we can't accept any more citizens petitions, but the Board of Selectmen can add or remove items to the warrant, and he came to the selectmen with this, and they put it on.
It doesn't look like something that's generally a selectman article, but okay. So we have to provide an opinion on it.
Did you guys provide an opinion on the Beth Kelly one?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
We don't provide opinions on citizens' positions.
Oh, okay. And that was
because
I don't know.
Here's the thing, Tony, that worries me, and I understand that this is probably not anyway related to this at all, but it's a whole different subject. But there are lots of right-of-ways in Little Nahant that are completely taken over, so that there is no right-of-way anymore. All the public walkways are gone, just about. So I'm concerned about this because once something is taken over by a property owner, it by default becomes theirs, and then we give it to them and we sell it to them. And so again, it limits the ability that the rest of the public have for tax-paying land.
I will say that the selectmen did have that conversation and talked about it. The difference here on this one is it's actually a permitted structure. The steps were permitted by the town. So it wasn't in like an illegal encroachment like you see a lot of in Little Nahant. And it's only 192 square feet. It's not blocking the actual roadway whatsoever. But I hear you. I'm with you, Judy. I've been working on that right-of-way issue in Little Nahant for quite some time.
But Tony, is this a right of way or is this part of the street?
It's actually part of like the street.
Right.
But the street in real life
Right.
is not where the street is on paper.
There's a lot of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's more of like, clarifying the line as to where the house really exists. But you can't just move the line. You have to go through this process.
Right. So the difference is that it is permanent.
It is permitted. It's not really, it's not taking away the ability to pass. It's not an illegal encroachment. And it's a very small amount of space.
And it doesn't change the conforming nature of the property. It's not like by adding that 192 square feet, it changes it to 10,000 square foot
Correct.
lot or anything like that?
Correct.
Okay.
I think he simply, anticipates leaving it to his kids one day and doesn't want to leave them a property, a deed issue.
Right.
Mhm.
So our recommendation would simply give the Board of Selectmen the authorization to pass it on to the Town Old Land Study Committee. The first one.
We would be recommending it or not recommending it. We don't authorize it in the
Right.
strict sense of the word. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, if you guys, I don't know if you got, how you guys want to put your recommendation on here. If it's, I mean, are you guys, is it
We can always
either
put no
one or the-
recommendation, right?
Yes, we could.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Is it either recommend or don't recommend, or do you have a third option? I mean, you guys could go with the third option because of, not wanting to set a precedent or anything like that.
Right.
The two of these are linked, 29 and 30.
Right.
So,
I'd make a motion to make no recommendation on Article 29 and 30 based on the discussion we've had.
I second that.
Me too. Well, you can't, okay. I agree. So Zohara, aye. Zohara, aye.
ADI.
Louis, I.
Vanderslice, aye.
Bolger, aye.
Brown, aye.
Army, aye.
So did we can't, we have to vote 30 now too, right?
Yes.
Okay. I make the same motion on Article 30, a motion to make no recommendation on the article which expresses to discontinue a portion of Antigo Way.
I second.
Zohara, aye.
ADI.
Brown, aye.
This is for a no recommendation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, aye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Bolger, aye.
Army, aye.
Okay. So we could jump back up and do 27, 28, or we're getting close to, we're over our 9 o'clock limit. So the question is, do we end here and pick back up, or do we want to drop into something contentious, more contentious, like the wetlands?
Gosh, John, I prefer to call it a night.
So do
Okay.
I.
I'm good with that.
All right, and when we say pick it up next time, we have a meeting posted for Thursday, so it's, are we talking Thursday or?
I would think so. Yeah.
I would think Thursday.
Yeah. So what we need to do between now and Thursday, in an ideal situation, what we do is get our questions that we had for Articles 4, 7, 8, 10 assembled and to Debbie. That would have to be done tomorrow. She'd have to get back to us by Thursday if those articles were going to be able to, if we were going to have the information we needed to vote those on Thursday. I would say that that's maybe unlikely timeline. I mean, we can push to get that document to her, as early as possible tomorrow. But under the assumption that that information doesn't come back by Thursday, then I guess we'd have to push those votes to next week. But we could instead then pick up on Article 27, 28, 29, 30. Oh, I'm sorry, we just did 29 and 30. So 27, 28, 31, 32, and then the wetlands. So it wouldn't be an
I think we
impossible.
should do that, John. I think we should do that and then also spend 15 minutes with Bob. If Bob would start out and go through the
Okay.
information he provided us earlier so that the rest of the team has a base.
Yeah. I also did talk to Tony earlier today, and he made the point that of two of the articles that we haven't yet voted on, the tree bylaw, that we could invite Vi Paytech to kind of talk on that, since she's a primary advocate for that. And then with respect to the senior deferred property tax interest rate, I guess Tony said that that's been put forward by Sheila, the assessor's office. So we could ask her if she wanted to inform us on those two things. So other than Bob giving his speed recap of what he did for the East Point study, whatever we get to with respect to the wetlands bylaw, we could have those two people as guests too, if they're interested. If they don't want to come, then we can just talk about it on our own. Sound okay?
Yeah.
Have you guys decided about next week? Are you doing Tuesday, Thursday next week as well?
We haven't discussed that.
All right,
But
so
I
Board of
think-
Selectmen meet a week from tomorrow. And that would be, as far as timing wise, I think it's the last opportunity to open and close a warrant and vote on a budget. And there'll be changes. There'll definitely be some changes to the budget. And then there may be even more changes if the warrant gets changed. Just so you know, I think, we had some leftover funds that we were going to drop to free cash in the last budget we sent you. And, that was before COVID. And, Debbie and I have been talking about it. I think our best option is to put it in the reserve fund. So this, because we don't know what, the state's budget is going to look like until after our town meeting. At least, like, if things change, it's in the reserve fund and we can come to you guys for it. And if we don't use it, it drops to free cash anyways. So that's, one thing, a couple other things in there too. So I think Thursday of next week, you should definitely try to meet. So at least I can brief you on, whatever changes come about at Wednesday night's Board of Selectmen meeting. You guys.
So we at least
No,
need
you-
we know we at least need a meeting next Thursday, right? So,
Right.
so probably we'll need something Tuesday too. Maybe we can, again, hope that it's a short one, but probably the Tuesday, Thursday permutation is the way to go.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so in my mind, what we have to do is we have to finish voting, and then we have to ideally write or finish writing all of our recommendations, and then have those recommendations in front of everybody to kind of go over them. Because one of the things that, I'll allude to when we talk about the wetlands bylaw, there's been some points made about recommendations that were made in the past related to that article on behalf of the Finance Committee. And so I will just say that one of the things, as you guys kind of start to familiarize yourselves with this process, is we tend to get crunched in terms of trying to meet deadlines and times. And sometimes, in retrospect, that's an instance where maybe the committee didn't do the perfect job of ensuring that the language and the statement that went into the book was absolutely reflective of the true consensus opinion of the committee. So, we don't need to talk about it right now, but that's just a kind of a point that in the past, what we've done is made our votes. Committee members who are assigned articles go off and write the recommendation. They write it in the spirit of representing the committee's perspective, because it's not just that author's recommendation, it's the committee's recommendation. But the way that they've been assembled in the past, it's more, there's not a lot of ability to editorialize or collectively edit or alter those recommendations. So having some capacity to do that is ideal. That's all I'll say.
Thank you, John.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Can I ask a question here?
Absolutely.
I did a lot of work on Article 3. I guess I wasn't supposed to do anything?
Article 3?
Let's go look
I know
at-
everything there is to know about snow and ice removal.
So I will say, just not to, so that is an article that so I think you were assigned that, in that we have already voted on that, but the author of the recommendation is no longer on the committee. So you got slotted in to write the recommendation. So does
What
that
did I
kind of-
recommend?
You actually, let me just
John
confirm.
said we were for it.
Yeah, snow and ice. Yes. Oh, wait a minute.
It's nice.
That's actually that was a no recommendation. So basically, a lot of time, I think when we had voted that, it was in March. It was March 17th, and a lot of times the committee suspends its recommendation on that article because we don't really know what the number is going to be until town meeting. So I think this year, I think Tony probably could, we could go back and revote that article now that we know what the numbers are. But in the past, what we've done is made no recommendation in the book, but then when we get to town meeting on the floor, we typically that morning make the recommendation to
So
on
So this isn't the 30,000 that we appropriate in the omnibus. This is to cover any extra, right?
I think so, yeah.
So I don't even think we're going to need it this year, because we've already closed FY20, and essentially we're going to have to use free cash from FY21 to supplement any type of deficiency in FY20. So luckily for us, we only spent like $50,000-$60,000 on snow and ice this past year.
57,126.
Yeah, so we're actually not even going to need this article, because typically, Jeff, we do, because like John was saying, we're having this town meeting is before the fiscal year ends. So we are, transferring money over in the same fiscal year to cover any type of deficiency, but we've actually already closed the year because of the postponement. So I don't think we're going to need this year.
Well, here's useless bits of information. Since 2013, you've averaged about $112,000 a year in snow and ice removal. The lowest year was 2020 with 57,000. The highest was 2015 with 224,000. I was wondering where the $30,000 number came from.
You mean the budgeted number?
Yeah.
So
Just a
if
plug.
Tony can clarify, but I think this is one of the few accounts in which the town can statutorily overspend. So it only earmarks 30 and then knows it's always going to spend more and then figures it out later. Tony, you want to clarify that?
That's exactly right. I
So
don't know why 30. I don't know why it wasn't 50 or 10. But yeah, when you have the ability, when you're tasked with balancing a budget and you have the ability to overspend in one account, you can use that account, the snow and ice account, to appropriate less than you may typically need, to get a balanced budget, and then in the, later in the fiscal year, shift money around to cover the extra costs, or borrow for it. You have the ability, if for some reason we didn't have money to shift around, we could borrow to pay it off, or use free cash of the future fiscal year to cover, the deficiency once you close the year at the end, at the end of the year when you close the books. So it makes sense to appropriate less than what you think you'll actually need. Because like in a scenario like this year, well, this year's unique, I guess, but because of the way the town meeting is timed to be. But yeah, it makes sense to keep the appropriation in this account low, for purposes of balancing the budget.
Okay, this just was sort of FYI for me.
Yeah.
I look at it and say, now I know everything there is to know about an account that doesn't really matter.
I would take a little different perspective, Jeff. So what I would say is, when you're writing the recommendation, well, I guess assuming we're still, well, no.
In May.
Yeah.
Keep him on this one for May. He's earned it.
Keep that bulk of the bolus of information you have, and if you can, formulate it into a coherent paragraph or two that lays out the historical trends, the high, the low, and why it's an underfunded budget item in language that you can teach the town citizens something, because that's something we've tried to do in the past, is, kind of make the recommendations, a recommendation of the article, but at the same time, do a little objective editorializing, if you will, that gives people this information that you found useful or beneficial or helpful. Because if you don't put it in the book, then it is just going to flitter away and no one's going to grasp onto it. But if you can somehow get it into the book in some form, it might pay dividends later. So don't feel bad about your work.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, even if it gets cut out of the warrant, the historical data that you pulled together could always go at the back of the book.
Yeah. Because I feel like I think I had snow and ice before, and I cobbled together the same Excel table that had the average spend, the high, the low, and I don't think I ever did anything with it, but putting it somewhere that it can be digested makes sense.
Okie doke. So you want our questions regarding water and sewer enterprise before Thursday?
Ideally tomorrow, so we can, again, it's tricky to figure out how to make sure that we do that type of exchange of information in a way that's compliant with open meeting laws. We're not deliberating, but
okay. Do I send them to you?
Bob, who wants to do it?
Collect the questions?
Yeah.
What's Nick's house? I can do it.
Okay. All right. I have a tricky day tomorrow. That's why I'm kind of shuffling it off a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
Send them here, please.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yep.
send the article number and then the question you have to Bob, and then he'll, or the point of information that you think you need, and then he'll collate them all together and somehow, no doubt, beautifully package them for Deb and Tony.
I don't know.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
To adjourn.
Second,
Brown,
Fulgham, aye.
Katie, I.
Louis, I.
Brown eye.
Zohara, aye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Charmy, aye. And who was that made the motion? Was,
Brown made the motion.
thank you,
And I seconded.
thank you.
So we're back to WebEx for Thursday. Is that true, Bob?
No, I got the Zoom meeting, so
Okay. All right.
Yay.
I thought it worked pretty well.
Good.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey,
See you
thank you,
guys.
everybody.
Yeah,
Great
thank you,
meeting,
everybody.
thank you.
Night.
On
Good
Thursday.
night.
Thank you. See ya.
Good night.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
night all.